Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paula Macris from Nutrition at Seattle Cancer Care Alliance, and welcome to the session, Optimizing Nutrition After Transplant. Working with long-term transplant survivors is an area that I have a strong passion for, and I hope that today I can share some helpful information with you on diet and nutrition for healthy survivorship. What I'd like to do today is, first of all, give you a better understanding of some of the long-term nutritional consequences associated with stem cell transplantation, namely chronic graft versus host disease. I'll then go on to describe some of the transplant-related issues, including metabolic syndrome. And then finally, I'll share some information on gaining practical skills and tools to help you maintain a healthy diet post-transplant. And as with all sessions today, this presentation is being recorded for future use. And if you have any questions following the presentation, feel free to email us at the email shown there on the slide and include BMT Reunion in the subject line. I also want to share the land acknowledgement that Fred Hutchinson Cancer Center sits on the land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and with honor and gratitude for the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. Well, let's look first of all at some of the long-term nutritional consequences associated with stem cell transplantation. As advances in technology and supportive care measures have improved, the number of long-term transplant survivors continues to increase. And with this growth, a greater emphasis is now being placed on treating long-term complications and late effects of transplantation. Two common transplant-related complications with nutritional implications that I'd like to address here today are chronic graft versus host disease and metabolic syndrome, both of which are common and both of which impact life expectancy and quality of life. Let's look first of all at chronic graft versus host disease. Some of you may have attended the morning session with Dr. Flowers and Kristen Gary regarding chronic graft versus host disease. But in a nutshell, it's basically a situation in where the donor recognizes the host as being foreign. And in more technical terms, it's an immune-mediated disorder that occurs between the patient and the donor. GVHD typically happens about 3 months post-allogeneic transplant or when one receives a transplant from another donor, an unrelated donor or a related donor. And chronic graft versus host disease may affect many body organs. Those specific to nutrition include the mouth, where different lesions, narrowing of the esophagus or the ability to swallow can happen. Stomach GVHD, which is characterized by nausea, vomiting, decreased appetite, and early fullness. And GVHD of the gastrointestinal tract, which may include diarrhea or abdominal cramping. Chronic GVHD may change the amount of calories that one needs due to need for repairing damaged body tissues and helping to regain any kind of weight loss. And with chronic GVHD, the body may digest food less efficiently, requiring increased nutrients such as calories and protein to help gain or maintain weight. And if you are in this kind of situation, just some suggestions may include focusing on small, frequent meals and snacks instead of eating 3 large ones, maybe 5 or 6 little ones throughout the day. Consuming an adequate amount of protein, and I'll be addressing that in the next slide. And then finally, using nutrient-dense healthy fats added to foods, things like extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, or butter. Conversely, some medications such as prednisone may actually increase the patient's weight and promote weight gain. And if this is the situation, you certainly want to monitor the portions consumed and avoid a lot of processed foods high in fat, salt, and sugar, as well as exercise. Well, with respect to protein, there's a greater demand for protein in patients with chronic GVHD. It's a nutrient that's important for growth and rebuilding tissue. And you can see some food sources here on the slide. Animal proteins, such as lean meats, poultry, fish, eggs, and dairy products, as well as plant proteins, such as legumes, different types of beans, black beans, garbanzo beans, lentils, etc. Nut or nut butters such as peanut butter, almond nut butter, and even soy-based foods such as tofu or edamame. Fluids are another important nutrient and a good component of healthy nutrition, as so many of the medications post-transplant impact kidney function as well as other losses due to fevers and GI losses. Specifically, immunosuppressive medications that increase fluid needs are cyclosporin and tacrolimus. Needs are also increased in the situations if a patient is having GI losses, either through fever, profuse sweating, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, or rapid breathing. And some good sources are listed here on the slide. Of course, water, broth, smoothies, any types of milk, whether it's cow's milk or milk alternatives such as soy or almond milk. Things like yogurt, soup, and vegetable juices are also good sources. And you overall want to limit caffeine and alcohol intake. And variety really is important. You want to make sure you're drinking fluids throughout the day instead of waiting until you're thirsty, and especially drinking adequately if you're living in a warmer climate. Of course, drinking more on hot days, and also if you're exercising. And finally, keeping a bottle or a cup of water next to you or fluid in sight so that it's a good reminder to continue to drink. Well, aside from chronic graft versus host disease, another common nutrition-related issue that we see is that of metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome is a cluster of different biochemical abnormalities associated with an increased risk in the development of type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular disease. And there's a high incidence of metabolic syndrome in the United States. It's estimated that over 50 million Americans have this syndrome. And having a bone marrow transplant places an individual at even higher risk of developing this condition. Well, by definition, metabolic syndrome is a condition if an individual has at least 3 of the 5 defining characteristics. One being apple versus pear fat distribution. You can think of an apple as being more centralized adiposity, more fat, or a higher waist circumference, versus pear, which has a more even distribution. Patients with metabolic syndrome may have high blood fats, things like cholesterol and triglyceride levels. Lower good cholesterol levels, such as the HDL, high blood pressures or those on medications, and a high fasting blood sugar or on medications. And you can see from this slide specifically what some of the other symptoms include for metabolic syndrome. There may be fatigue or an inability to focus, being very tired, or having what we call a brain fog. Again, high blood pressure, high altered lipid levels, and this centralized adiposity. Again, you can see there the apple or the central adiposity versus the pear body shapes. There may be changes in reproductive function in both men and women, and browning of folds of the skin around the neck. And there's also something called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is fat accumulation in the liver, even if you're not drinking alcohol. Well, studies have shown that both pediatric and adult transplant patients are more likely to develop diabetes and high blood pressure than the general population. And in some retrospective reviews we've done here in Seattle, we know that adults are 2 to 3 times more likely to develop high blood pressure, hypertension, and 4 times more likely to develop diabetes. And with children undergoing transplant, they're 2 to 3 times more likely to develop high blood pressure, which is more pronounced in kids 11 to 17. And kids are also more likely to develop diabetes threefold than the general population. So with this in mind, what kinds of lifestyle changes can we make to reduce the incidence of developing metabolic syndrome, as well as maintaining a healthy diet post-transplant? And I want to talk next then about just some practical skills and tools that you can do to help maintain a healthy diet in your role as a survivor. The American Institute of Cancer Research is an organization associated with the World Cancer Research Fund. And basically what they've done is that they've looked at evidence-based studies, reviewed the results, and come up with some guidelines for the general population. The first is to be a healthy weight. You want to keep your weight within a healthy range and avoid weight gain in adult life. And a healthy weight really is different for every body. One tool that we can use to determine a healthy weight is that of something called body mass index, or BMI. And basically what this is, it's a formula looking at the weight to height proportion. So if you're interested in calculating out your BMI, you can go on the internet, Google BMI calculator, and it'll have you just put in your weight and height and then give you a number for your body mass index with information on the interpretation, if it's an ideal one or one that constitutes obesity or being overweight. And we also know that if a person is in an overweight situation or has metabolic syndrome, even a modest amount of weight loss can help reverse some of the symptoms associated with metabolic syndrome. Be physically active. And if there was a session this morning devoted specifically on exercise and physical activity, excuse me. So we know that physical activity helps to lower cancer risk by helping to promote weight gain, helps us to achieve physical and cardiovascular fitness. And just little things you can do to strive to build more activity into your daily routine. Things like taking the stairs instead of the elevators, maybe going out for short walks at lunchtime, parking the car further back at the grocery store so that you have to walk a little bit further to get in. Just simple little things that you can do. And you want to aim for at least 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week or 75 minutes of vigorous physical activity. Moderate exercise, if you think about 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, you will achieve that 150-minute goal. Moderate to the point that you can still talk to somebody when you're exercising, but you can't sing a song. And once you get into a small exercise routine, just gradually building on there, starting slow and building up, and working toward achieving an exercise level of 45 to 60 minutes of moderate intense daily exercise. Another guideline is eating a diet rich in plant foods, such as whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and legumes, and really basing your diet around these plants foods, which are high in fiber and other nutrients to help reduce cancer risk. And we also know that consumption of plant foods, which tend to be lower in calories, also helps one to maintain a healthy weight. Some recommendations then include thinking about having 2/3 of your plate filled with plant-based foods. Again, the whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and legumes. Consuming at least 4 cups, either raw and or cooked vegetables and fruits daily. And this may seem a little daunting, but easy things you can do to try to get to that level. Things like putting fresh fruit into cereal or yogurt in the morning, adding different kinds of vegetables, whether it's tomatoes, spinach, mushrooms into scrambled eggs, making smoothies, adding lots of fruits and vegetables. These are great ways to get more of those in your diet. And even things like blending vegetables and putting them in pizza sauces or spaghetti sauces or other quick little ways that you can do this. And with the fruits and vegetables, you want to get what we call a rainbow of colors, this myriad of phytonutrients or just these substances that have cancer-fighting properties. And looking at the picture here on the slide, and this is a great time of year in the summer because there are so many plentiful fruits and vegetables available. You've got your red vegetables, your tomatoes, your peppers, and your strawberries, and then going down into orange with carrots and sweet potatoes, bananas, pears, and then into your leafy greens, spinach, kale, Swiss chard, cabbage family, cauliflowers, broccoli, lots of good berries out there this time of year, and then citrus fruits. So again, just getting a wide variety and making it very colorful. And then finally, trying to get legumes more into your diet. Again, garbanzo beans, kidney beans, any kind of dried peas that are rich in antioxidants, fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Another recommendation or guideline is limiting the consumption of fast foods and other processed foods high in fats, starches, or sugars, and instead choosing whole foods. So what is a whole food? Well, a whole food is essentially a food that has really had nothing done to it, or very little done to it. It hasn't been fortified or enriched, bleached, hydrogenated, or dehydrated. And you can see here from the slide, the top one being more processed foods and the bottom slide being more whole foods. Some quick examples of whole foods include fresh cherries, a baked potato, and a baked chicken breast, versus maybe the processed form of these foods, slice of cherry pie, instant mashed potato flakes, and fried chicken tenders. I think you get the idea. Again, trying to focus more on whole foods. Another guideline is limiting consumption of red and processed meats. And it's recommended that we eat no more than 12 ounces of cooked red meat per week. And red meat is considered beef, lamb, and pork. And if you think about the size of a deck of cards, that's about 3 ounces. So this recommendation still is pretty much allowing us to have still good amounts of red meat, but just watching the overall quantity. And then, of course, eating little, if any, of processed meats, things like ham, bacon, hot dogs, and sausage. These types of foods have been smoked and cured, salted and fermented, or have preservatives added to them. Another guideline is limiting consumption of sugar-sweetened drinks. And really strong evidence that consuming sugar-sweetened drinks causes us to consume excess calories, which can then lead to weight gain and situations of becoming overweight or obese. And we want to limit consumption of sugar-sweetened sodas, of course, and sweetened teas, any of the coffee drinks which tend to have more sugar added to them. Sweetened vitamin, energy, electrolyte drinks. They may be marketed as being healthy, but in reality, many different brands certainly do contain a fair amount of sugar. And then also fruit juice. And instead trying to drink mostly water and unsweetened fluids, things like herb tea. You can make infused water where you've added lemon or even cucumbers or other fruits to water to give it just a nice flavor, especially in the summertime, and even sugar-free sparkling waters. Limit alcohol consumption. We know that alcohol is a known carcinogen, and it's best to not drink alcohol at all. But if you do choose to drink, limit your consumption for women to 1 drink a day and for men to 2 drinks a day. And also be aware, just some things to consider, that if you do go out and have a drink, restaurants and bars often now are serving larger than standard size alcoholic drinks. So smaller sizes should be ordered, or avoid asking for a double. And alternate alcoholic or non-alcoholic drinks, another way to get less alcohol in the diet. And do not use supplements for cancer prevention. You want to aim to meet nutritional needs through diet alone by consuming a variety of foods each day. And instead, getting all your nutrients from your diet through lean protein sources, low-fat or non-fat dairy products, whole grains, again, fruits and vegetables. Lots of information out there on the internet or from well-meaning family and friends about taking certain supplements, but really best to check first with your healthcare provider and really trying to get all the nutrients you need from whole foods. Well, finally, some additional suggestions here on this next slide to supplement some of the AICR recommendations. A couple things you may think about trying, getting creative in the kitchen. Things like ground flax seeds, they mix really well into yogurt or oatmeal. They're high in omega-3 fatty acids. Kale and dark green leafy vegetables are certainly becoming more popular, easy to add them to soups, and they also blend really well in smoothies where you're blending perhaps yogurt and other fruits. Hummus is another way to get more beans into the diet. Traditionally, it's made with chickpeas or garbanzo beans, but you can certainly vary what the kinds of beans you use. White beans, edamame, lentils all work really well. Instead of snacking on chips, snack on roasted pumpkin seeds, another good source. And adding other nuts such as walnuts to salads or hot cereal. You can also make your own salad dressings with olive or flaxseed oil, and avocado and walnut oil also work really well for salad dressings. And for those of you who do eat red meat, choose the grass-fed meats and wild fish. And then get experimenting with different herbs and spices that contain cancer-fighting compounds. Lots of recipes out there on the internet, good uses of things like ginger, curry, cinnamon, rosemary. Again, you can get really creative and try some new dishes. So in summary, we want to eat whole, real food. It's mostly plant-based. Encourage regular aerobic exercise and maintain a healthy weight. And if you do have additional nutrition-related questions, ask your healthcare provider to refer you to a registered dietitian nutritionist who's board certified in oncology nutrition. Well, as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of information out there on the internet, and what really are reputable sources of good nutrition and diet. The first one is the American Institute for Cancer Research, with the website listed there. And again, it's a great website, keeps up on all the current research, latest research on diet and nutrition and cancer prevention. The Cancer Fighting Kitchen is a website created by Rebecca Katz, who has actually written some very nice cookbooks, has great recipes, Cancer Fighting Kitchen being a great cookbook as well. And Cook for Your Life, this is a website through Fred Hutchinson. Lots of recipes, lots of ideas to vary your diet, plant-based focus. They have a newsletter that you can sign up for that comes out every Thursday, has lots of good YouTube videos, latest information, and also information on symptom management. And the Oncology Nutrition Dietetics Practice Group is a website designed for dietitians, but there are sections there on the website that answer general questions about nutrition and cancer. You can also visit our website, Seattle Cancer Care Alliance, and nutrition services and some of the services we have available to patients. And finally, the World's Healthiest Foods. This is a great website. Again, has a lot of plant-based recipes and ideas for including more plant-based foods in your diet. Well, thank you for joining me today.